It's another Manly Monday, and this Manly Monday, we are talking advice versus support. And I've color corrected the video a bit from Friday. Oh, I've had technical difficulties of late. Looks like my audio is a bit low, but I'll keep cruising forward. It's one thing after another with the battery backup fail. But yeah, advice versus support, because I find with groups of women, there is false support, but it, women don't jump to offer advice the same way, you know, on balance, guys do, because guys are trained to be fixers, or they find worth in being fixers. And so they jump to fix problems because that makes a lot of guys feel useful. It's a habit I had to break. Um, so I want to talk about that, because if you jump right to advice, you're actually skipping the support. And I'm seeing a domino effect on men and perspectives of the world. And I do think this is a part of the reason that men don't form the same close lasting friendships, especially later in life, that women do. The data's all over the map. I don't want to focus on it too much because it can be a distraction, but I do want to give some food for thought here. So if you like this content, help support this channel, becoming a monthly patron, patreon.com/Leanna K, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it, coffee.com/Leanna K, or GoFundMe for the men's groups if you would like to get an advance invite to the Discord server. It is, we have, well, starting middle of October, there are certain members who are at ambassador level and they can invite people. But if you want to join the Discord, you can, do something involving financial backing, because then there's a credit card. We know you're a real person. Nobody else has to know who you are, but I have to validate that you are a real person to verify you as a member. That's why we're doing it this way. So, advice versus support. And part of the reason I'm doing this way is we want to foster a supportive environment, and part of the way to do that is to establish trust. Funny thing that. So I notice with groups of guys, because sometimes I just sit back and observe, and I do ask questions sometimes. I put up some questions on social media last week, and it was, women, what do you think about these things? It was amazing how many guys chimed in with those when it specifically said women. And then it's, well, I was just offering my opinion. Yes, but you missed the prompt. And is there anything wrong with this? No, there's nothing morally wrong about this. It's just curious, because I was asking these questions as kind of a fact-finding mission to answer some questions that clients had, mainly about dating and meeting women and all that stuff. And so, I'd, in good faith, respond to these guys' comments, and they'd start arguing with me. And it was about the female perspective. And I'll hear, just making conversation, when I say, what are you doing here? Or I'm trying to contribute. And that's a great intention. But it's not the way women talk to each other. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's different. And the reason I'm going morally neutral on this is I have asked guys when they butt in like that, because the whole, mansplaining thing that I explored, I say, do you talk to other guys like that? And they say yes. And that's why I started observing how groups of guys talk, because there's a lot of environments where I'll be the only woman, or like one of two women. Not that I'm totally a real girl. But yeah, there is this thing in interjecting where just listening and being supportive was what the other person was looking for. And I do think that does leave guys who are more, shall I say, emotionally developed or emotionally aware. There we go, emotionally aware. I do think that leaves them having trouble feeling like they fit in because they are looking for meaningful relationships and good conversations and both advice and support, but the support element is lacking. And it's the support element that makes somebody feel like they fit in with a group, right? Because when somebody is always just being offered advice, they don't ever feel accepted. They feel like they have to keep conforming to stay as a group member. And that just gets exhausting. And eventually they shut down or they drift away because you got to be yourself sometime. And I'm not saying this is something that only men do or all men do. It is just something I have noticed is more accepted and unchallenged in groups of men than women. I have seen because of course if a woman is constantly offering unsolicited advice, you get called bossy or bitchy or domineering or annoying or all that stuff. Um so this is not, again, a moral flaw. This is an observation intended to help you make some corrections, both in how you're interacting with groups and maybe help you feel like you don't quite fit in anywhere, because I've been hearing that from a lot of male clients lately. That's why I'm talking about this. But also just watch it in yourself. Don't stop doing it completely. Just something as simple as, would you like some advice on this? Or are you just, looking for support? That can help a lot. So, what does advice versus support look like? Well, the one that's been coming up a lot where I see a distinct deficit in actual support is men approaching women and dating. Because women, they bring their girlfriends for moral support. And with women, most of the time, and this can get overdone, it can be sort of to a fault sometimes. But if a woman says a guy treats her badly, women will all line up to go, oh, he was an asshole, you'll do better. There's more validation that goes on. And sometimes it's fake, but there's more active validation that goes on in groups of women than I notice going on in groups of men. And if you are part of a group of men that is the exception to this rule, good. A lot of guys aren't. Part of the reason that rejection is so hard for some people is they don't have environments that support the effort. It isn't good job, you tried, okay, you got shot down, let's go have a beer or something like that. Let's go grab a coffee. Let's go play some, I don't know, whatever game of your choice. Something that allows somebody to know that you don't see them as lesser. I say to a lot of clients, when they say, what if I approach a girl and she shoots me down? I'll say, I'll be proud of you for trying, because that's all you can control. You have to get rejected a bunch of times before you find somebody that you're compatible with. And that's not just men. Unfortunately, a lot of these red pill groups have made men feel like men are the ones that always do the asking and women are always the ones that do the accepting or rejecting. And as someone who was too aggressive with men all my life, I have had some spectacular rejections going back to like the 7th grade when I asked a guy to dance because I'm like, big deal. I'm tired of standing around, nobody asking me to dance. I'm going to go ask a guy to dance. Well, this guy, I've talked about this before, um, you know, said no, went and told his friends. They laughed at me. Now, not my finest moment. I lied and said I didn't do it, but that's because I was embarrassed, But, you know, women get rejected when they do the approaching too. But women also get rejected when we're just minding our own business. I have had far more men approach me of, "Hey bitch, suck my dick," than I ever had a guy come up to me, find me interesting and attractive. That has just never been my experience, which is why I had to do the approaching. I just wasn't the type of person that attracted that kind of attention. It was always negative if people noticed me at all. And so I get it. I get that it's hard. And I wish I'd had more support back in the day of people saying, well, they're an asshole, instead of people saying, well, you should try to be nicer. Well, you're too aggressive. Well, you're a lot. I didn't ask for advice. I wanted support. And that's part of how I came to this because, yeah, I'm aggressive. I have to be. I mean, shit. I was a reporter. Even in gaming, even with being out there at all. Comedy, you definitely have to sometimes go strong offense is best defense when you're doing stand-up. It can go spectacularly wrong, but it's a tool in the toolbox. So yeah, am I more aggressive than the average, assigned female at birth person? Yeah. I don't know why. It's just the way I'm built. Part of it is that I do have to be more assertive working in male-dominated industries. But part of it is also all my life, I have had more male friends than female friends, except for a period in like the 7th to 9th grades where the gender segregation got really bad. And it was some of the most miserable years of my life. So I feel you. And, now I have friends like Mary Jest and Song and things like that. When something goes wrong, we're all like, fuck them. And that doesn't mean we don't tell people we don't tell each other when we disagree. It's just when someone is feeling kicked in the teeth, that's not the time to correct them. What I notice happens in groups of guys, though, is that support gets replaced by advice. And so it's, just get out there. Plenty of fish in the sea. And okay, plenty of fish in the sea can sort of be supportive for some people, not necessarily for others. That's well-meaning, but watch that one. But it's all well-meaning, right? It's all well-meaning. It's all trying to be useful and give somebody advice to help them get better. The problem with that is, and please, if you listen to anything in this video, please listen to this and don't just react and argue. Because this doesn't come from me. This comes from performance psychologists that work with elite athletes. Is that you can't do an effective correction when a person isn't in a place to hear it. You have to give people some time after a setback or after a loss, and not a ton of time, like the night, You have to give them that, or it it isn't going to be well received. It's just fighting the human brain when you do that. I remember I worked for this agency, this PR agency, and I'd had a brutal meeting where someone just, the boss of the company just dug into me. And the guy I reported to, I was really fucking thrown. And the guy not only blamed me, but was just, okay, well, shake it off. Get me the thing by tomorrow. That was the point. I started looking for another gig. Because I'm like, oh, hell no. I just got eaten alive and it wasn't fair. And is just shake it off, get back to work? Sorry, I'm too old to work places where I'm not valued as a person. And no matter what your age, you should be valued as a person. Just the older I get, the more I realize I don't have to take being devalued as a person. And I do unfortunately think that a lot of guys have internalized this idea of being disposable, partially because their immediate groups, their so called friends, treat them as disposable. I've been hearing from a lot of guys that they're getting sick of their friend groups because they're the ones constantly reaching out. They're the ones saying, hey, let's do something. They're the ones putting in the work and putting in the effort. And they would really like it if someone reached out to them and contacted them every so often. Now, that is part of the reason I like to have a smaller group of friends than having this massive. I'm an introvert, but part of it is just when it's a massive group of people, somebody always gets left out. And it's way too easy for someone to be forgotten. And even with the groups that I'm running right now, I still am hyper aware that I feel like I'm constantly falling down on making sure that people who are struggling more to get a word in edgewise uh, get a space, get an invitation to talk, because that doesn't happen all at once. So many of these things are treated as if you can just go from 0 to 60% in one big leap. And you can't. Motivation doesn't create action. Action creates motivation. And so someone being, hey, what do you think? And getting a chance to talk and finish their thought before someone else steps in, that will make them more comfortable interjecting the next time. Constantly having to fight to be heard won't. And that's just the way it works. And that's why so many introverted people really struggle to feel like they belong, because people aren't taught, hey, help create some space for this person who feels awkward. And then I start getting the pushback of, well, everybody feels awkward. Well, I felt awkward. It's like, that's nice. Don't you want better for other people than you got? To me, that is a core value. And somebody who doesn't subscribe to that core value of, I want to do better by other people than other people did by me, because I am validating every time I do that what they did to me was wrong. Every time you pull up, well, that's the way the world is. I didn't get it easy, so I'm going to be tough on other people. You're reinforcing the idea that you deserved to be treated badly, that it's just weakness or a lack of something, instead of, no one deserves to be picked on. It happens, but no one deserves it. Pushback is one thing, being picked on is another thing. And there's that, because boys in the early years are treated much more harshly than girls are. Boys develop that mentality, it's more ingrained and at a younger age, whereas girls kind of do this fake nice. And one of the bad habits you have to undo from girl world is the not rocking the boat, not causing trouble. um if so many women, and this is heartbreaking to me, treat pointing out a problem as making trouble. And I'm talking about this on Manly Monday because this is important when you deal with women to keep in mind. It's a toxic mentality, but a lot of men are socialized, and this is something I have to fight all the time, the programming of the world is a cruel place. No one gives a shit about you. Don't expect them to. And then I have to remind myself that there are plenty of people that give a shit about me. It just doesn't feel that way sometimes because the greater world has knocked the crap out of me. And that's where having a supportive environment does help a lot. I would love, more supportive people in person, but I'm very, very fortunate to have really great people online who I know appreciate me and I know want me around even when I'm grumpy and growly and in Kratos mode. And let me tell you, that awareness makes such a difference. And I see so many really amazing, considerate, intelligent, creative, sensitive in a good way, really passionate guys who are very lonely and don't know how to connect. And part of it is, it really seems to me, that support system. They think there's something wrong with them instead of just the world can be real tough on all of us. And if you don't have people, first of all, who can sympathize, and go, I get it. Um, if you don't have people who are modeling vulnerability, I mean, one of the things that I do when I work with people is I model, okay, I'm kind of a disaster right now. I have my strengths, I have my weaknesses, and I don't, I try to work on them. I don't try to hide them. Now, part of that is, I have multiple chronic illnesses. So, um, you can't hide it all the time. My face swells up periodically. People notice. And it's worse in the morning. Oh my God, my poor 9 o'clock clients, they get the cookie face. Um, but yeah, to have somebody, and that's why I'm a big advocate of peer counseling. And that's why I think it's such a good add on to therapy, because when you've done therapy, and I think it is possible to have too much therapy, because if you don't have that support system, um, therapy can get real rough and actually grind you down instead of build you up, because therapy is designed to challenge and give you tools. Um, when you hire somebody like me, or you have a solid friend support system, it's that ability to go, yeah, I understand how you're feeling. and have somebody really display that they really do understand how you're feeling, understand what you're going through, and they can say, like, look, this is how I handle it. It may not work for you, but um I get how hard it is. I get that this is not easy. I get that it's disappointing. It can be crushing. And somebody who's been through it knows how to spot the signs when someone is in inactive trauma. And too many people go, "What's your problem?" instead of knowing what the problem is. You may not know why someone's having a trauma response, but you can spot it because you've been there. And people are really cruel to people having trauma responses. It's angering. But that's the difference between uh, resilience is somewhat environmental. Being able to handle setbacks and not be demolished for a really long time really is connected to the support system that you have. And that combination of people willing to call you on when they think you're bullshitting, but also be there when they see you're really struggling and go, look, I understand, you know, what's going to make you feel better. And sometimes you don't know. Sometimes sometimes understanding, just knowing someone understands. Sometimes that's all it takes. Sometimes it's somebody knowing how to get you out of your own head. So, knowing to shift the conversation to something you like, hey, let's play a game, let's talk about comics, let's debate philosophy. Yeah, I have people who debate philosophy to have their mind taken off of things. It's pretty cool. Um, but having those people who know broad strokes, and nobody's perfect, right? Like nobody has a perfect understanding of another person, but just feeling like someone understands you like 65%, that's really powerful. And that's the thing I find a lot of guys don't have. And my anecdotal observations are backed up by evidence on that one, especially as people get older. Women have many more friends going into later life, the second half of life, than men do. And I think men are conditioned to rely a lot more on their spouse for that kind of thing. And no one person can do it all for you. No one person can be everything to you, no matter how great they are. Because one, that's just a lot, but also that person is going to be going through some stuff too. And if that is always supposed to be the person you turn to for support, a lot of people, get hung up on role, and you're supposed to support me. You're supposed to be a good partner, not recognizing that they haven't checked in to see how they're doing. And especially a lot of introverted people, unless somebody asks and we know that there isn't, this is the right time to talk about it, we don't, because we don't talk about ourselves very much. And so when we do and we get rejected, it just hurts a lot harder than, extroverts who have a lot more opportunities for success in that regard. And that's all I think it is. Extroverts feel rejected too. Definitely. And so, okay, what does it mean to be supportive? A really powerful phrase is, are you okay? And really want an honest answer. You know, if somebody tells you something really hard, sometimes if it's so bad, you know, um, I won't ask you if you're okay because you're clearly not, but if it's just sort of, well, somebody who's been seeing a girl for a month or seeing a guy for a month and they break up, are you okay? Because sometimes it can be a relief, sometimes not, but are you okay? And that's a step that gets skipped, right? Because people go, there's plenty of other people out there. You get your freedom back. All these things are, or I didn't like her. Never say that. Um, because they could get back together and then you're the asshole. But, um, the are you okay step gets skipped. And then some people try to deflect because they don't want to be a burden. And so what I sometimes do is, it's okay to feel bad. I'd feel shitty in your situation. And then sometimes I get this kind of look. There's a particular look of people who have had a lot of rejection, especially early in life, when something feels good because it's supportive and they're not used to it. But there'll be this moment as if they're prepared to get hit. Like they'll do this and then they'll kind of look this way, almost suspiciously like, can I trust this? And I'll say it's okay to talk about it. How are you feeling right now? And what somebody might do is say an I feel followed by an I think statement. Instead of correcting them, it'll be okay if I'm understanding you right now. You feel betrayed and disappointed and rejected. And, is that right? And someone will go, yeah. Most of them will go, yeah. And then add something. So, hey, now we're talking about feelings. And the other thing I find really, really powerful is asking someone, what would help? Or what do you want right now? And some people won't know, but they will appreciate you asking. Other people would say, I no, I just want to watch something stupid, throw on One Piece or something like that, just to get a laugh, just to, I want to, draw on some Doom Eternal, blow my brains out, something like that, not literally in the game. Um, and sometimes they'll say, you know, I just want to be quiet for a while. And you can say, oh, you want to listen to some music or, whatever. Sometimes just sitting with the person in the same space or, you know, co-watch a movie together on Amazon Prime or Gen V. The boy spinoff is out now. Um, Sometimes just having somebody there is enough. Sometimes they want to talk. And whatever you do, if they start talking, stay off your fucking phone. Don't set a timer. Don't abruptly go, yeah, okay, well, I gotta go. If you do have a hard deadline, let them know, look, I want to hear more about this. I do have to go in 15 minutes. So it's not a sudden abrupt, because this is somebody who's reaching out for support right now. And if you think about, somebody who's having trouble walking, if you support them, that means you can't drop them because they can't walk on their own. So if you're supporting somebody emotionally and then you go, okay, well, see, I gotta go. You're dropping them. It's the same thing. You're just, whoops, done. Makes sense when you put it that way. And a lot of these steps gets skipped with guys, because there's this sort of unwritten rule that we don't actually talk about feelings except anger or frustration. We talk about what happened, but we don't talk about how it made us feel. Notice I'm including myself in that. This is why I'm so big on I feel versus I think, because I caught myself distancing myself from emotions to the point that I couldn't name what I was feeling anymore. I didn't know when I was overwhelmed. I didn't know when I was exhausted. I didn't know what those sensations meant. And that's another thing you can help a buddy with, or realize it's okay to ask for. Is it's okay to ask for things to slow down, or just ask for patience, or ask for somebody to check in on you. These are okay things to ask. And if somebody doesn't do them, that is not an indication of your worth. It can mean they're kind of shallow and selfish, yeah. It could also mean they just have out of control ADHD and don't have a ton of sense of time, right? It's very important to practice asking for stuff, figuring out what we want, what we need, be very clear on the difference between the two, and work on and create an environment where everyone is invested in not only your own emotional equilibrium, but that of other people's. So that is the difference between support and advice, where this is what you should do, or I would do this. Really make sure you're focusing on the feelings before you pivot to actions. Not that there's anything wrong. Some people really appreciate the advice, but I usually, when someone is in a sensitive spot, I don't push them, and I will ask, do you want some advice right now? Now, that is partially because of what I do. You got to be real careful not to put thoughts in people's heads, not to lead them. And so I'll go, okay, if somebody's really stuck, I'll ask them, I can only tell you what I would feel like do you want me to suggest some things, like list off some things, you can tell me if I'm right or wrong. And I really find I can't think of a time where someone said no when they were emotionally stuck. But that prefaces it as, I am not telling you, I am offering this so you can see how it feels. Because when people are first developing an emotional vocabulary, it's like an eye doctor, one or two. And a lot of the times they'll say both, of the two options I give them, or all of the above if I give them three. But that's connecting, right? And that's, if someone can predict it, and this is not anticipating, this is putting yourself in the other person's position and connecting. When you can offer that and they go, yeah, that's right, they feel understood, they feel connected, and that helps people heal a lot more than advice. It's also very important that you take that step, so when you give advice, it's good advice. Make sense? All right, give it a try. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who uses it but can't afford it, coffee.com/LeannaK, or support the men's groups on GoFundMe that I've been terrible at promoting. Thanks for watching Manly Mondays.